I went to see Backrooms, and yeah, I had a fun time. This is the feature-length directorial debut of 20-year-old Kane Parsons, who had a super successful YouTube short film he made all on his own at 16 about the same premise. It originated from like a creepypasta 4chan picture thing. I don't know. I watched the short film and a little bit of the mini-series that came after it, and it's great. It's simple and eerie and weird, and it was cool to see a genuine feeling of tension and unease without resorting to jump scares or other shitty horror cliches. I'm happy to report the transition to the big screen was achieved. It wasn't a disaster, but I don't know if it necessarily excels at what the original film did. There are, in fact, jump scares here. I don't know what role the studio had in putting those in there, but they sucked. So, yeah, get used to that. There were also shitty horror cliches everywhere, with the characters not necessarily acting like real people sometimes. I've seen a lot of viewers say this movie is mostly lacking a good vibe because the found footage aspect that made the original so effective isn't used as much, and while I do agree that the scenes filmed on a video camera were entertaining, they suffered from their own distractions for me. Shitty, borderline cringy dialogue, stiff, almost unbelievable acting. Like, why are we focusing so much on operating the camera perfectly while we're in the corporate catacombs? I just thought of that. It's actually a silly alternate name for them, the Backrooms. I also don't know if this scared me as much as it just kind of intrigued me or weirded me out, which is what I wanted. It's more about the vibe of the Backrooms that really works on me, which had me asking, what the hell would this movie be without them? The meat of the movie, like, you know, the story and the characters, that felt rather unspecial and bland. That combined with being fairly tropey made me feel like the whole Backrooms aesthetic was the only thing holding it afloat. Maybe not afloat, but above the line of a very average, bare minimum film. I know it sounds like I'm going pretty hard on it, but this is a good movie. It's interesting to think about even. I'm going to do some analysis and my own theories and shit in just a few seconds. But yeah, the script just felt shallow. I had a hard time with the believability of the characters. I feel like I'm just repeating myself now. It's not like our main characters here lack any backstory or interesting stuff about them. It's just once that's been established and we introduce them fully, that's kind of all they have. It's stuff like this, you know, the actual movie parts, the things that we as viewers cling on to that felt mediocre, mostly because they didn't feel fully realized. Stuff that wasn't unique felt way too general, sometimes even lackluster. Let's do some analysis now, though. Come on, let's play around with what we got. Spoiling things in 3, 2, 1. I'm not going to pretend like I have this movie figured out or anything. These are just ideas I gathered while I was watching it. I noticed the Backrooms being closely tied to the brain, the mind, or maybe even the subconscious. Renate Reinsve is a therapist, and at the end of the film, we learn the people who have been researching it started out as developers for MRI machines. They do like brain scans. So that kind of leads me to think that the Backrooms are supposed to represent the parts of each other and really the parts of ourselves that we don't understand fully. There's a lot about the layout of our minds that don't make sense. It seems scattered and empty and random at first, but also familiar and homely. Is that a word? Also, what's that quote? We only use 10% of our brain or whatever. I feel like the deeper we search into our minds, the more twisted and fucked up it becomes too. The pieces of ourselves we hate, our memories, our fears, our trauma, soul-searching, or I guess subconscious exploring feels a lot like the Backrooms. It's kind of comforting and peaceful, but it's also unsettling and can be uncanny. You know, if you've ever done serious work on your own mental health, you know that it can be unnerving, maybe cathartic as well. I don't know. I liked the way the Backrooms portrayed memory, you know? Our memory isn't an exact copy of what actually happened. It's kind of a shitty, off, maybe not perfectly right representation of the reality. And then, you know, there's that quote too that says that when we remember something, we're not remembering the thing, we're remembering our memory of it. And then we're just kind of remembering those memories over and over and over again. And that's accurately, I feel like, portrayed here. There's that Clark line, I think, about how the Backrooms remembers everything, but the more it remembers something, the less it does. Mary is Clark's therapist, so it's fitting she literally goes into Clark's mind. I got that, you know, that's pretty evident. Clark is an architect, though, so it's kind of funny. He has built this place to keep his thoughts and feelings. The Captain Clark monster guy might be the part of him that's a sad, failing furniture salesman and not a successful, respected artist like he wanted. It makes sense that it's starting to ruin and destroy Clark's subconscious mind. It ends up running the place, which shows to me where he's ended up, at least mentally. It's basically the worst parts of himself taking over. The crude copy of his wife, Barbara, freaks out and flees maniacally when the shitty copy of him comes into the room, which kind of implies one of two things. One, either people have suggested this, that Clark may have been abusive to her, or at least someone that causes her great distress. Two, this is the one I'm leaning more towards, it's like how he remembers her, which is what sounds more believable to me. He knows that she hates this worst version of him with a passion, so that's why she reacted that way. Besides, it wouldn't make sense for a movie to focus so heavily on an abusive dude who beats his wife. He's shitty in the movie, yeah, but he's going to therapy, he's trying. We learn through Scientist Man at the end that the backroom doors have been quote-unquote opening up everywhere, which shows it's a whole big system that isn't unique to Clark, though. So maybe this is suggesting that the concept of the backrooms is some kind of shared consciousness. I don't know, I thought it was showing that while innately super different from person to person, we are all constructed with the same general building blocks, You show a picture to a third party of my brain and your brain, they're not going to be able to tell the difference right away. It's only once we start to look at the inner workings that it becomes more distinctive. Your backrooms might look like this, mine might look like this, theirs might look like this, some probably overlap, but either way, we all have a version of our own back rooms to wander around in. Some people, aka the people who haven't addressed their mental well-being, haven't even discovered theirs. Some people have maybe done too much of a deep dive into them. I don't think it's worth it to be super duper introspective all the time, every time, and I think that's kind of an accidental point that this movie makes. You aren't going to find any answer that truly satisfies you. So yeah, I think the message, if there is any, is this. We will never be able to fully understand all of ourselves or why we are the way we are. And that's terrifying and sad and beautiful all at the same time, just like the back rooms are. I found this to be the general notion when we're at the dinner table scene. Through all the flashbacks, it's implied that Mary became a therapist because she had an extremely mentally ill mother raising her. Her mom lost it and went totally insane at one point, and we can venture to guess that she became a psychologist so she could help people from becoming like that, so she could save others from becoming her mother. I know I ragged on the character development. This is proof that there is some, it's just not necessarily the deepest, most profound, original shit. This is actually a fairly common thing in real life and in character writing. But then she has that quote about how she realizes she can't save anyone, and there's this really subtle and cool thing Renate does with her performance where she kind of signals that something clicked finally, like she finally realized what her role was. Even if she could somehow enter a person's mind, she can't fix them. No one is doing that except for themselves. I think she even says something along those lines, like, I can't even fix myself. In the end, we see Mary as her own poorly recreated copy in a bad backrooms version of the interrogation room at the lab. Is this scientist man's memory of the moment? Was fake Mary planted there because he's now traumatized because they're gonna have to kill this lady? It's not like you have to be in the backrooms to get a copy. Evil Captain Clark was living there before Clark ever even entered for the first time. So I mean, a lot of people saying like, oh, she accidentally stored a bad memory or malicious version of herself down there now and yada yada, it's the new monster. I don't really buy into that. I do kind of think that maybe Mary put her copy in the back rooms inadvertently because she was now back to being trapped inside forever like her childhood. I don't know. That sounds good. We do learn that the back rooms are expanding, and that kind of does mirror reality. As time goes on, we learn more about what makes humans tick and their complex psychology. People are becoming more aware of their mental state as each generation continues on. Is this a bad thing? I guess it depends on how ugly we let it get. Awareness of our minds is both a blessing and a curse. Finding out that we might be powerless for our shitty wiring might not be the best discovery. So is awareness a good thing? I don't know. Clark becomes aware that he doesn't want to change and that he's just wired like that. Then he got eaten. So I don't know. I feel like these questions could have been better answered or explored with deeper characters. So that'll wrap up with that. Anyways, clearly there's fun to be had with what this movie is playing around with. That still doesn't mean I didn't find it to be flat sometimes. So when you have a movie that I'm pretty sure is speaking on the seemingly endless complexity of the human mind with such two-dimensional characters, that's where the disconnect happens to me. That's also that, and thematically, I don't know if it fully brings the whole thing home. On one hand, I'm loving what this movie is putting down, and on the other, I think it's kind of mediocre. So with that being said, I'll probably have to give this like a higher 6 to a lower 7 out of 10. Tell me what you think. I'm leaning more towards the 6 though. It's both doing enough in some places and not doing enough at all in others. I've seen some people absolutely adore this movie. So leave a comment, like I was saying. Also help me get my YouTube plaque. I'm only 99,520 subscribers away. Let's hang out sometime soon, you know? Maybe we'll go to the back rooms and set up a slip and slide or some shit. Or shoot each other and have a Nerf gun war. Or throw a bullpen.